If you wore this hat, not only would it kill you, but it would completely change your personality before it did. As the 1800s began, a process of using felt for hats, typically made from actual beaver fur, was quite common. If you owned any bit of money, wearing a hat during this time was seen as a status symbol. It was incredibly important and an essential part of your outfit. You see, when making these hats, the fur would often stick together. In order to prevent this and smooth the fur down, the hats were typically dipped into inorganic mercury in the form of mercuric nitrate. As they did this, however, it would release a toxic mercury vapor into the tiny, often confined workspaces. During this time, they supposedly knew the dangers of mercury exposure, but kept it in the work area because, you need the hats, right? Those who worked on the hats were called milliners or hatters. But as the use of mercury in hat making became the norm, it seemed like a lot of hatters were getting sick. When the body is affected by mercury poisoning, it creates a variety of intense symptoms. Most notably is the change in personality, such as irritability, depression, low self-confidence, or just kind of a general mood change. Those suffering from mercury poisoning can also experience headaches and memory loss, just kind of a general brain fog, and just kind of being all over the place mentally. And that doesn't even touch on the physical symptoms. A neurological condition called Minamata disease is caused by mercury poisoning. Its symptoms include numbness in the hands and feet, just general muscle weakness, a lot of damage to hearing and speech, and can even include paralysis, comas, and death. All of this and more affected those in the hatting business, and as you can see by this little illustration here, these are just a lot of the symptoms that people suffering from mercury poisoning would display. This is where the expression "mad as a hatter" or the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, that's where it comes from, because if you were a hatter during this time period, it was pretty much known that you would go mad. In the late 1800s, medical articles about the mercurial disease among hatters started making the rounds, and people were starting to catch on to the actual dangers that these people were going through. An 1878 inspection found that 25% of hatters had mercurial disease. In 1934, the US Public Health Service estimated that 80% of American felt makers had mercurial tremors. By the 1940s, manufacturers voluntarily agreed to stop using mercury in this type of process. But the damage was still done. The Mad Hatter stereotype was prevalent. It made its way into popular fiction, and tons of people were affected by this. These hats were so popular. Imagine if Supreme shirts had mercury and were killing their customers. It's on that level. What are your thoughts?